Я подключаюсь, передаю настройку. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And we are back, AK-47 heads, with another episode of the Talking Lead AK Korner presented by Pioneer Arms Corp. And I know you guys have been anxiously waiting this part 8 of our 12-part series. And joining me again, we have the privilege, the honor to have my esteemed additional host, none other than Ansel Robinson, Shwell himself, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, wow. I thought you were talking about somebody else that wasn't in the chat. My bad. How's it going, everybody?
You're kind of like the Sasquatch, the Yeti, the Loch Ness Monster. You're hard to get these days, man.
Chicken with his head cut off. So much going on behind the scenes, and I'm not really sure what I'm doing, and I don't think anybody else has any idea what I'm doing either.
No, I think you probably got a pretty good idea, and I think the pegs keeps you in line as well, right? She keeps you straight.
Absolutely. Without her, I wouldn't be here.
And we got, another thing you're working on, March coming up. End of March, you got a big event down there in your neck of the woods. I know you're working feverishly to get that up and going and get it ready.
Absolutely. This time of year is always hectic for me, especially following SHOT Show. Lucky enough, I did not have to make the trek out to Vegas, but our Big 3 East media event is scheduled for the 27th, 28th, and 29th of March, and it should be great.
It's going to be awesome. And there happens to be a little 2-day course prior that I'm really looking forward to. A gentleman by the name of Mark Krebs, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be putting on a little armorers course for us.
Yes, sir. That is correct. You know what? It's funny that you say it because I just found out about that on Friday.
Did you really?
Yes, sir. I just found out about it on Friday. So this should be very interesting and a great opportunity for those that are attending the event.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. And you are lucky that you didn't have to go to SHOT Show. I'm just now on the tail end of the SHOT Show crud, and you'll probably hear me clearing my voice and sniffling and doing all that crap, but also a survivor from SHOT Show. Joining us again on the AK Korner, we've got our good buddy over at Occam Defense, Brian Keeney, ladies and gentlemen.
Great to be here again, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, you're always a welcome guest on this show. You've got the big brain, so we can always use the big brain. Dropping knowledge bombs.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is your third. Is it your third appearance?
Something like that. Yeah.
You just passed up Jim.
Well, not a guy I want to compete with. So yeah.
We're going to be having Jim back on again, and it was good seeing him. Got to meet him in person at SHOT Show. They had their little their annual thing there. Was it open house? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, that's kind of my favorite part of SHOT. It's all the AK guys in one parking lot at the RD shop there, and there's street food but really good people. There's usually a raffle. There's either comedy or this year Jim did a lecture.
He did a comedy lecture.
Well, yeah, that too. Yeah.
That was pretty funny. He was kind of dressed up like Mr. Rogers. It was pretty hilarious.
It's crazy. My first time going to SHOT Show back in 2012, I met Jim Fuller at his shop during one of those open houses as an airsoft attendee, as media for airsoft. And they had partnered up with a company called Echo One USA, and they had a Rifle Dynamics AK-47 in airsoft, and that's how I met Jim for the first time.
That's cool. So let me go ahead and introduce our other guest that we've got today. Joining us, and this isn't his first time on the show, but this is the first time on the AK Korner. We have the owner and designer over at Manticore Arms, Sven. Is it Jonsson? Because I always asked you that.
Jonsson. It's
Jonsson.
So, yep.
Because he's
Italian.
I was going to say Swedish. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually half Swedish and
Italian,
mostly Welsh and English. So I think one half of my family was raping and pillaging the other half. We discuss if the family tree kind of merges back together in a few places. It's hard to say.
So welcome in, Sven, to the AK Korner presented by Pioneer Arms Corp. We appreciate you joining us. So our topic this week this episode is going to be accessories. You guys have been asking a lot about AK-47 and type rifles accessories. So that's what we're going to focus on today. Talk about the different things that are available. Our last episode was the 922R compliance. And we had our good buddy Andrew on from Century Arms and CJ Jonsson with Pioneer Arms Corp. And we had talked kind of high-level 922R compliance. And as we're talking today, I got a feeling that there's probably going to be some of that comes in that we probably will talk about as well, because as people are accessorizing their AKs, that is something that they definitely need to keep in mind when they're doing that. Would you guys agree?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And it's okay to disagree with me, even though it's my show. You can disagree with me and correct me.
Well, I did have a question in regard to that, but I'll wait till we get to that section and ask that question.
Okay, we'll do that. And then, of course, you guys hang tight, because at the end of the show, there's going to be what, Shwell?
We're going to be giving away more AKs.
Yeah,
from Pioneer
baby.
Arms.
That's right. We're going to be giving away another AK-47 to one of you lucky lead heads. We got a special way to pick the winner. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, right. It should work out. It's so high tech, I can't even explain it.
It's crazy. We got the physicist involved with coming up with another way to pick the winner. If you guys remember, Brian picked the winner, was it 2 episodes ago? By the next type of vehicle that passed your car.
I think that's what it was. Yeah. Yep.
Pretty high tech. So very cool. All right, guys. So let's talk accessories. When accessorizing your AK-47. So I've got a 922R compliant AK-47 sitting in my hands, and let's just say it's a Pioneer Arms Corp one, the Sporter. Okay, and we talked about what they change out. They change out the trigger group. What were the parts that they change out for that to make it 922R compliant, Shwell?
The trigger group, the handguard. I
think the magazine was one.
Magazine covered quite a few parts.
Yeah, the trigger group was 3 parts. The magazine was 3 parts, so that takes care of 6 parts right there, right?
Right. It was. You didn't tell me that there was a quiz.
No, I'm sorry.
So,
if I remember right, I was a listener, not a participant.
I was waiting for Brian to chime in. So yes,
he said they brought him into the country with like a chunk of wood for the stock, like a 2x4, basically.
Right.
Yep.
I would bet that the stock that they put on is a U.S. made, but I am purely speculating there.
Yeah.
And that actually goes to I don't know if you want to just dive right into 922R.
I think we should probably, because there's some lingering, I think, questions that people still had with the 922R, and you've got a good take on maybe some of that to clear it up.
And I think also a good point too is, you had mentioned we're talking about accessories here, but before you accessorize your rifle, you need to make sure it's 922R compliant. Whether you want a traditional looking AK or really going high tech on it, you still need to make sure your parts count is there. And it's actually in some ways harder to make sure you have enough parts if you want to keep the more classic look.
Right.
100%.
Or another way to look at it is not enough parts, but that you don't have more than the foreign amount of parts. And the thing is, you can have up to 10 foreign parts. You don't have to have 10 foreign parts. You can have 1 foreign part if you want it, but that's kind of another way to look at it other than the reverse way. I think that confuses some people.
Right, because I think we were discussing this a little beforehand, and I don't know if it gets wonky because there's technically the 20 parts that can be defined. And I think, if I remember, I did a little research here while we were talking.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's 16 parts are counted on a standard stamped receiver AK, like the Pioneer Sporter would fall under that, where it's got the sheet metal receiver, the front and rear trunnion blocks in it. And you go from there. If it's a milled receiver, the trunnion's part of that, so it doesn't count as a separate part, but that means you only have 15 parts on the list, which it's almost like a reverse of how you would think it. It's like golf scoring. You want lower, not higher. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So, Brian, continue.
Yeah, I think the the first thing that we all would probably like to say is that none of us are lawyers and none of us are at the ATF. So all of this is speculative, right? And if you really care, you need to get a determination letter from the ATF, and they're surprised if you can get them on the phone. They're surprisingly responsive, and they are pretty responsive by mail. Not that I don't know. I'm not a fan, and not a fan of the ATF. Just saying, my personal experience has been pretty decent. Good.
Sorry, Brian. I think what Brian's trying to say is you can show this video in court. It's not going to hold up in court.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And we're not your lawyers, and we're not lawyers in general.
That's right. None of us have law degrees here, as far as I'm aware. So
yeah, as Marty was saying, it's the law and the line that we're all talking about, which you can pretty easily find on Google, is quote, "No person shall assemble a semi-automatic rifle or any shotgun using more than 10 of the imported parts listed in paragraph C of this section." And it goes on for another little bit that's not important. So that's the math. If we're doing a math problem here, which is logic. And so you've got these 20 parts. 3 of those parts are magazine components. I personally like any magazine to go into my gun. Like if I hand it to somebody on the range and it is only compliant because I don't have a Polish magazine in it, and then somebody puts a Polish magazine in it, does that make it a felony? I don't want to find out. So
that's a good point.
So I use 3 of my 10 parts right off the bat for magazines. And I think I got that from Jim Fuller in his class. Like, I don't know what your feeling is on that, Sven, but foreign mags are great. Like, I like running Bakelights. I
would tend to agree, both for legal, non-legal advice, legal reasons, and personal reasons. You can get into the argument, well, has anybody been prosecuted for 922R? Is there an ATF agent behind the bush at the firing line just waiting to count your parts? Probably not, but strictly speaking, in my personal experience, stamped steel Euromags, Bakelite mags are the best quality ones out there. I've had no problems with those. I haven't personally broken any of the polymer Wonder mags that have been made, especially for the AK-47. That being said, the European ones, for what you pay for them, are by far, in my opinion, the best ones. That's what I run. That's what we run in house, because I literally have one that has shrapnel damage, and you can tell that somebody with a bloody hand was hanging on to it. And we still use it in the range. I mean, it was the coolest thing. I got in a big batch of magazines I bought. I was like, is that me, or does that look like a rusty handprint on there? Yep, that was probably blood. So,
so if you're going to use those 3 mags, that leaves you with 7 parts, and you do not want. Well, I don't want to be controversial, but let's say we like foreign trunnions, foreign bolts, foreign bolt carriers. So now you're down to 4 parts that you can have. The U.S. trigger groups we like. And then now it starts to get murky because, barrels, there are some nice foreign barrels out there. However, they count as one of your parts and you start to run out. So you start to have to pick whether you want a barrel or a laminated wood stock from overseas. And so this is more a question for builders. We're diving off into the builder category, but there are times when it's wise to swap out a gas piston for a US made one. That's sort of the OG route. But basically you need to get on the ATF list, knowing what we've just said with your 7, you start with 7 parts, then you take away 3 for your bolt carrier bolt.
And not every part of the AK-47, it's only these specific parts that they count. So if you're trying to change a part that's not even on their list, like a sight, I don't think sights are on here. I don't think the
Yep. Guard retaining rings aren't on there. Front sight, rear sights aren't on there. Gas tubes are not on there.
Right.
So there's a bunch of stuff that's not. So you really do have to do the math problem. The way that I would recommend doing is by sticking it in Microsoft Excel or a Google Doc with Google Sheets, and just running down the list of what you want and what you don't. That being said, for the 99% of listeners out there that are buying a firearm, as long as they're buying a U.S. made part, life is pretty good. It's like you can't make the problem worse by adding on a U.S. made part.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And again, think of it in reverse. Not, you can have a max of up to 10 foreign parts. You don't have to have 10. So you can subtract your foreign parts and be okay.
Yep, that's right. So the only place where I could see,
but you need to know which parts are foreign and which parts are U.S. made with your gun when you start going to replacing things.
Yep, and a bunch of the U.S. parts are stamped U.S. Yeah. And so that makes it pretty easy.
So you hit on a good place for us to start with accessories, the magazines. So
yeah.
There's a slew of different magazine manufacturers, like you guys are saying, overseas and here in America. The list that you were talking about, the foreign ones again, hit that list again.
Bakelights are getting real hard to find, but they're great. The steel mags are great. That's I'm trying to think of what else. Well, there's some plastics out there like Circle 10s and all those. There are some crappy foreign ones. I don't like talking about stuff that's bad. Why don't we just talk about stuff you like?
Well, yeah, and that's what we're doing. What do you like in the magazine world? You said the Bakelights. Where are they from?
The ones I get are from Russia, and they're getting very hard to find. The plastic, like the Circle 10s, and let's see who else. So, like
Circle 10 is a foreign.
Yeah, those are surplus Polish, I believe, or Bulgarian.
Okay.
They're Polish Bulgarian. And then for U.S. made, those are getting to be, the steel Polish are really good. I don't know what your opinion is, Sven, on steel. I don't use them a bunch because they rust so easily. Like the training, I don't like steel, but a lot of people who I trust do. And so why don't you speak on what you like for steel?
I really like there's a standard, what we call Euro pattern steel. Now the ribbing in the sides may differ. Typically what you see is there's a steel like flange or rib on the back. There's, ribbing of some sort on the sides. And you can see that about 10 years ago, there was tons that came in surplus with all sorts of, there was the Croatian ones that had the French fleur-de-lis stamped into it, which were really collectible and whatnot. Feature wise, the ones I like a lot, and it's probably because I like AR bolt holds opens, is the Yugoslavian made mags. The follower in them has a flat face on it. So when you run out of ammo, it locks the bolt back. Now, granted, when you take the magazine out, the bolt will slam home. But what I found is, maybe not for a first time shooter that they would recognize that. But for me, I like to bang, 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 ka-chunk, and you can feel it, tactily in the gun that the bolt's locked open. And sure, you pull it out and the bolt goes home. You got to recharge it when you put the new mag in. But in my opinion, it makes up for one of the, we could make an argument on the AK and ergonomics versus, the manual of arms is very, very different from what we're used to here as Americans who
the ARs,
typically know the AR platform. But I like that feature. I like and I don't have many of them, but the Chinese, what they call flatbacks, which are most AK mags that are made of steel, they'll have that flange on the back. And I found if you're doing a lot of mag changes over the day, your thumb starts to get rubbed pretty raw from that sheet metal flange on the back that kind of sticks out, a little sharp edge. And the Chinese flat back is basically just, they don't have that flange. They fold it over and butt weld it. So you got a nice smooth back on it. I like that. I guess if I was to design an AK mag, I'd make those and put Yugoslavian bolt hold open followers in it, and bam, there you go.
Well, that's actually a good segue into the folks over at X-Tech Tactical. They've got a plastic mag with a waffle pattern on it. And it has a bunch of metal parts that are important, like the feed lips and the forward and rearward lug. And
I was not familiar with that. What I was going to say next, because you mentioned bake lights too. The one thing I think, I can talk about little features, but the one thing I really like is if you're going to buy a mag, and if somebody asked me, Sven, I don't know what mag to buy. I've never bought AK mags. What's the one thing I should look for? You absolutely need a metal tab on that rear that sticks out. Right. And the reason I say that is, Brian, you do product design and I do too. You cannot make a plastic tab strong enough there that it can't get snapped off if somebody slams. You're working the gun really hard, you drop into the ground. I guarantee it can be Wonder Polymer or whatever. You need that metal reinforcement because it's just was never designed to be a little plastic tab sticking out. That's the one weak point on the mag if it's all molded plastic.
So, the X-Tech guys, one thing that you'll like is they do have the metal where you like it. And I did a drop test on them, 6-foot drop test on all corners with a fully loaded mag. It didn't eject any of the shells and or cartridges rather. And they do have a bolt hold up open option. And they, in my mind, are a really nice mag. I've run them a bunch.
How much do those run usually?
I think
$26.95.
There you go.
The power of the internet.
Pricefinder.com.
I should know that. We have them on our website with free shipping. But yeah, I know what I pay for. What I pay for sticks in my mind. It's not a whole lot. There's not a lot of margin on those mags. They cost a lot to make, and those guys are selling them pretty cheap. And
I gotta say that's actually not a bad price. Being in manufacturing, molds are not cheap. In volume, once you make enough parts, they are. But over molding that steel bits that you've got to make, that's not cheap either. So that's really impressive. They can bring it in at that price.
So let's go to U.S. made mags now.
So the X-Tech is a U.S. made.
Okay.
It's my favorite of the U.S. variety. I tend to agree with Sven. Would you also agree that you need a metal feed lip to keep it from bulging over time?
I have not had enough experience with purely plastic, or as I call it, polymer magazines, especially in the AK, to give an informed opinion on that. My personal opinion, based on my experience with some of the work I've done, is that I would rather have a steel reinforced magazine. But that on the AK, there's enough meat where that polymer would be for the magazine lip, since they're originally machined on the original one. You've got enough material there that I won't go as far to say that polymer wouldn't work. I just, I like the reinforcement.
So is that,
I'll leave it at that.
What about the magpul mags? Those are very popular magazines. What's your opinion on the magpuls?
I own a ton of magpuls, and I've started buying X-Techs.
Okay.
I've not sold my magpuls, but I buy X-Techs now.
I think the best I can say is I have had some come with guns. Some of the AKs we have in-house for design work, I use European steel mags. I'm not saying that they don't function and fire fine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have enough experience to say that. In my opinion, have seen enough to be convinced that you need a steel reinforced rear tab there. And the magpuls just don't have that. It's nothing against their product design. They're just stuck in an envelope that was designed by the Russians in the late 50s or the late 40s before polymer magazines existed. If you could redesign the AK a little bit, you could probably make one that worked perfectly serviceably. So
now what about the AK-74? Same philosophy on those magazines?
For me, yeah. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Sorry. My experience is they're a lot more fickle. That everything that we just said about the 47, but more so.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm spoiled because about 10, 12 years ago, the AK-74 mags, the Bakelights, with the steel reinforcement, they came into the country and they were being sold as low as $3 a piece. And I bought about 30 mags back then for my AK-74 and have never, I probably could sell that and retire. I think they're like, what, $50 a piece now?
At a minimum. At a minimum.
At a minimum.
Now, are you guys familiar with those the drums that they have for the AKs now? Like Pro Mag has one, KCI I think has one.
There's also surplus drum magazines out there as well.
The surplus Romanian ones. You got to load a single round in the top every time. And I just picked up one of those Chinese-made ones that's got the cover that opens on the back, and it's actually clear plastic. I mostly got it because it was really, really inexpensive. And, I haven't heard anything bad about it. The mounting is all steel, so I'm not worried about that. But it wouldn't surprise me if the thing just blew apart and rounds came flying out of it at some point either. I mean, I don't have any, it literally, unfortunately, here in the shop, and I don't know if it's the same for Brian, I buy things with the intent to look at how they work. And then sometimes they get used and sometimes they sit on the shelf for a while till I get to play with it. So
some other companies that make magazines, like I said, I mentioned Pro Mag Tapco makes magazines. Of course, we said Magpul, SMG Tactical. I'm not familiar with them, but they make AK magazines. KCI, Arsenal.
I will say the Arsenal ones, that's Arsenal of Bulgaria. It's also known as Circle 10 magazines.
Okay.
I have an SLR 106. It's their 5.56 caliber AK, and they make good. The black plastic magazines they make have the steel reinforcement. They're not cheap mags. They're like $30-$40 a piece. Mm-hmm. I've had great experience. They also make some that are actually like a translucent polymer. It almost looks like a Steyr AUG magazine, the same kind of amber color.
Right.
Those over time, I've heard that if you have them in the sun a lot, that the polymer can get a little brittle and get some hairline cracking in it. But I've never had that happen. But then again, mine's sitting in a box on the shelf up there somewhere. So, but yeah, I hate, it's one of the weird things where usually it's the U.S. market kind of takes the lead on a lot of products on being progressive. Mm-hmm. But I think it's just the Soviets designed such a bomb-proof magazine off the bat for the AK. Really a lot goes into that. It's the feed lips are machined steel. It's not like an AR mag where it's all one complexly stamped piece of metal.
Right.
They really looked at what's the important part and what's the weak point, and they put the money into it. And I think until the surplus dries up, there's just not a lot of margin for people to make magazines of that quality for that, the price you can get them for.
Yeah. Well, especially when you got like Magpul cranking out those polymer ones. So, all right. So I think that does it for the magazines, and that's not really an accessory. I mean, you got to have a magazine for your gun, but still, there's a lot of different varieties, and that's something that I wanted to hit on and get your guys' opinion on a good magazine for our listeners. Let's talk about. You want to go stocks or handguards next, guys? Don't everybody chime in at once.
Either or, it's all furniture, right? It's all kind of the same wheelhouse.
Yeah, let's go with a stock. Let's go with stocks. There's all kinds of variety of stocks out there. You got your fixed stocks, you got your folding stocks, you got your collapsible stocks, you got skeleton stocks. I mean, there's just like your ARs, you got a variety of the AK stocks as well. And with those adapters now, I mean, you can even put AR stocks on your AK.
Yep.
And would you?
I know a guy who makes those. So,
well, let's talk about that. Since you bring it up,
self-promoting, right? That's
that's kind of why we got you on the show, because you do have accessories.
Manticore Arms. We make a product called the F3 stock adapter, and basically what it is, the Bulgarian guns and some Russian guns, but mainly the Bulgarians. Some of them have a left side folding stock, so it folds around and onto the left side of the gun. But it looks like a traditional AK stock, except for the special mounting bracket and hinge pin that allows that to happen. And some time ago, we had some requests to make some way to put an an M4 carbine stock, slider stock on an AK, side fold it to the left, and make it flush, which in retrospect was probably the most absurd request we've gotten in a long time for a product. But we said, okay, we'll take a look at it.
Challenge accepted.
Challenging would be the word for it. So the idea was to make it, shorter for storage or whatever. And we did ultimately make that. It folds upward at an angle a bit and extends a little farther than a normal AK stock. So if you're a gargantuan dude, this actually works great.
Like Brian.
But the reason it extends farther is to clear if there's a side rail on the gun or whatever. We've got a cutout in the side of the tube, and the tube can be used to hold cleaning kit or cleaning rods or whatever you want in there. And spare earplugs, whatever, your bag of M&Ms, whatever makes you happy. So
Snactical tactical.
Yep. Oh.
Yeah, I must say, just having seen it for the first time here, it is really clean. I would be very hard pressed to think of a way you could break that thing, as far as I could tell, which I can't say for a lot of. I mean, that's kind of the first thing that goes through my head on an AK is, could I beat somebody to death with it? Yep. And emphatically yes, with Sven's solution there. And it doesn't have a bunch of little fiddly things. Like if you're looking for a one-piece solution that's nicer than a triangle side folder to replace on either the new polymer side folders or the triangle there, which beats a lot of people up, this thing looks really slick. Maybe if your cheek weld isn't so nice on the triangle, I'm definitely getting one after we get off the call here.
Nice.
Cool. We could probably scrounge one up for you in the back. So
that'd be fun.
With that wonderful review, I couldn't ask for more. So yeah, that one was actually a tricky to machine, and not to get off into the weeds, but it's a monolithic piece of aluminum. So we machine that from a billet, and it gets complicated because the rear of the left folding guns, for anybody who's not familiar, it's not like most rifle stocks where when it folds, it just rotates around and it's exactly in line with the gun. The Russians put a weird angle on it, so it sticks out, horizontal with the rest of the gun. But when it folds, it actually folds up at an angle to help clear the magazine, so that you still have access to the controls on the gun very well. And man, that sucked for the math to make that work. That took about 3 or 4 passes to get everything height wise and everything working. It was not. I don't like to talk about the product because I look at it and I go, damn, what were we thinking? So, but it works.
Well, no, I'm very impressed. Like I said, I can't wait to play with it and maybe offer it here.
Coming from the guy who said, let's just delete the rear sight based on the AK, I'll take that as a compliment. So.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, that's really cool.
So Shwell and I were talking a little bit off air, and the AK pistol, that's very popular. And Pioneer Arms Corp has one. It's called the Hell Pup. And the way it comes is, it's just in the pistol configuration. So people who want to add those braces on those, what are we talking about doing for people who have the pistol? There's adapters that they can put on these, right? Right.
Actually, I know a little bit about this because we work a lot with SB Tactical on products, and although we didn't work on that one, actually the AK pistols, there's kind of 2 directions you can go, and one's a non-permanent modification, and one's I guess you call a semi-permanent modification that involves some machining. Mm-hmm. The first one is SB Tactical, and I think there's some other companies out there too, but basically what they make is a tube that comes off the back that holds their arm brace or whatever you're putting on it. And then it's got a plate that goes kind of sandwiches between the pistol grip and the underside of the receiver. And that's the mounting point, and it slides up against the butt of the gun. And then you just tighten the pistol grip screw down really, really, really tight. And that holds it in place. And the nice thing about that is it's very easy to put on. It's very easy to take off. If you own a screwdriver, which if you don't own a screwdriver, I will argue that even Mikhail Kalashnikov might not use his gun. Right. But that's all it takes to mount it. The other option is kind of the industry standard, is a pair of 1032 threaded holes you can put in the back, and then you can bolt on hinges. We make a triangle stock that'll bolt onto that. Ace Rifle Stocks is probably the best known for that, where they make their kind of FAL or FNC style stock. There's a plethora of arm braces and stocks and things that can do that, or adapters that use that standard pattern of the two 1032 threaded holes spaced apart. I don't remember the spacing. It's like 5/8 of an inch.
Yeah.
Right.
But
What Sven is talking about right now is what Pioneer is bringing to the market in 2019, already installed in those rear trunnions. They're actually putting those holes in the rear trunnion, so you don't have to do any machining. You can buy the adapter from Sven and throw it on, and you're good to go.
I like the sound of that. That makes me happy. So,
but for those who don't have the holes already, the option is either drill or do that pistol grip kind of thing, right? Or I guess you could replace your rear trunnion.
You could, and I guess I should say there's least difficult to most difficult if you have the tools and the knowledge. Mm-hmm. If you have the tools and the knowledge, and you're a brave person who doesn't have the knowledge but has some of the tools, you can grind off the rivet heads. You could pull the rear trunnion. You could mount a new rear trunnion that has a tang on it, or whatever you want to do. The nice thing about the AK is if you have some basic machining, or I'd say even blacksmithing skills, if you know how to pound a rivet and you know how to use a drill press, you're about halfway there to being able to build the gun. I know there's some specialized tooling, and maybe I'm oversimplifying it.
But then you also have, we have a country full of gunsmiths as well. So, contact your local gunsmith, give them your business, and they can take care of that for you as well.
And that's a good point. There's a lot of AK smiths out there that can replace a rear trunnion. It depends on where you want to go with the gun. It's all doable. It's just sheet metal and metal and plastic and wood. So, and
then you get into basically unlimited types of stocks that are out there for your AK. Now let's talk AK-47 specific stocks that are out there and available. Let's not get into where you can do the AR stocks with these adapters and blah blah. If we're just talking, keeping it AK. What's your
standard AKM rear trunnion? You mean with the little tang coming off as meant for the laminated wood stock?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the one that comes right to mind is there's two from Magpul. One of them's folding. Kalashnikov cried in his grave when he saw the way it folds to the right for complicated reasons. And I love Magpul, but for the love of Jesus, they folded it and covered the fire control group. I still use one. They do occasionally break.
Well, was that because of the side mount for the optics when you fold it over to that side?
That's the reason, and I did consider that a valid engineering reason to have committed such a sin. But
you can get into it really gets into, I think, design theory about right side folding versus left side folding, and I think the quick and dirty answer, since we want to move on to just talk about standard trunnion stocks. The idea behind left side folding was what the Russians did, because they thought, well, our optics, if you have an optics rail on there built into the side of the gun, their optics have a quick release lever. They're supposed to return to zero. So the idea is, if you're a soldier, you pop your optic off, you put it in your optics bag, you fold the stock to the side, you now jump in your helicopter and go fly around, or jump into your APC and, whatever. You get back out, you unfold the stock, you put your optic on. The only idea was to fold the stock for transport. Mm-hmm. You're breaking it down. At any other time, you're supposed to have you would have your gun ready, or, excuse me. And the idea was the controls are still accessible from the right side, where your safety lever is and your charging handle is. Us Americans look at it and go, well, why the heck would you want the stock pinned between your body and the gun? Well, that's stupid, and it covers up my optics rail, so now I can't leave my optics mounted. Let's make it fold to the right. Well, different theory, different application. It's, if it folds to the right, now you can leave your optic on, and, you can shoot the gun, and it's not wedged between you and the stock and whatever. But you have this inconvenient thing called a safety lever on the right side, and another inconvenient thing called a charging handle on the right side. So, you basically, unless it's very clever design, kind of block all the operating controls of the gun. Yeah. So,
and then again, you're with the same philosophy of use. You only use that when you're transporting it, because at that point it becomes non-functional for you.
Right.
Yep. So I still, the Zhukov is that folding stock. It's they do occasionally break, but I like them.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody likes them. I do like them. Even though, like I said, I wish they folded left. Then there's the fixed.
Could you not put it on upside down? I'm just kidding.
Somebody's going to try that now.
Right. Do not try this at home.
The magpul MOE stock
told me it would work.
The MOE stock, yep.
MOE stock is quite nice. It's moderately priced. I think it's $50 to $60. It will not break. It has a cheek weld, which works for most people. They have cheek risers for those who do need the adjustment. It's relatively aesthetically pleasing. It's what we use on our production rifle. I'm a big fan of them. I'm trying to think about who else is out there for standard, other than, the off the rack. Well, yeah, go ahead, Sven.
I was just going to say there really aren't a lot of other options unless it's a wood stock or a plastic or polymer stock that basically follows the lines of the original Russian stock. And there's been some that have come or gone that maybe they have more storage in it. You don't have your little Chinese finger trap storage compartment in the back like a lot of the Russian. Come on, everybody here who's owned an AK at least once has gotten their finger caught in there. But yeah, honestly, I think the magpul stuff is the only thing I can think of offhand that really has that level of feature. The other two I can think of, there's the Romanian wire stock, also known as a cheek beater, which is really compact. I mean, it's really narrow. It's literally a piece of like 1/4-inch steel wire that's just been bent into a rather impressive shape and, flattened out for a butt plate. The other one is the Polish have their Burrell style stock, which is a little bit more refined version of that, which is kind of looks a little bit more like the Ace stock. The one thing I found about that, though, is it was designed for Polish soldiers wearing very bulky body armor. So the length of pull, I'm 5'6", and even I find the length of pull on that thing is too short. The butt plate is very tiny on it.
Yeah.
But
I really like the Ace stocks. Just saying. The double star, is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, double star Ace.
Yeah.
They're all, I think Ace is owned by Double Star now. They were bought out some years ago. The other option is, we'd already talked about kind of the pair of 1032 threaded holes that the Ace uses. I think Ace and then Stormworks is another one that makes a lot of adapter blocks. Both companies make adapter blocks that allow you to basically mount on that standard rear trunnion and then put your hinge or your 2-screw mounted stock or hinge on that. And the neat thing about the Stormworks hinges and the Ace hinges is you can actually invert it so it'll fold left or right. You can set the gun up to fold either way with the same hinge, which is kind of a cool feature. The only thing you get into is some people, me included, don't like the aesthetics of that big block where the trunnion is. It kind of looks like a dingus hanging out the back of the gun.
Dingus?
It ruins the lines. I don't know what else to call
What's
it.
What's a dingus? Does anybody know what a dingus is?
Your imagination. You're not allowed to ask, man.
To a person
Something,
or a thing.
A designer thinks that it does not belong there. It's a dingus.
It's a dingus, yes.
There you go.
Thanks, Shwell.
We should also mention Rifle Dynamics makes a pretty nice buffer tube adapter.
Yes.
And also JMac Customs makes a whole bunch of products in the pantheon of what we're talking about.
Right.
Both 4.5, 5.5 adapters that go to buffer tubes. And then they've also, I don't know if it's out yet, but they've got another rear trunnion to buffer tube adapter solution in the works there that looks pretty.
Justin over there does some nice work. He's actually, I'm very impressed with a lot of the stuff he comes out with. And CNC Warrior, I think they are the ones, there was Bone Steel Arms, which used to sell their own stuff. And then I think CNC sells it now, CNC Warrior. And they make a couple of different side folder knuckles and stocks that allow you to mount direct to a trunnion without lopping that trunnion piece off, which that's the main issue with a lot of these designs is you got that piece of metal sticking out the back, which is good if you got wood or a plastic stock on there to support it. It's not so good if you're trying to make it compact folding stock.
Right.
So,
and you've got a Chinese stock at Manticore Arms, right?
we do a Chinese style American made stock.
Yeah.
So I like to joke that the Chinese copy everything the Americans made. So I just turned around and copied their stock and make it in the USA. It's actually machined aluminum, but it's kind of like our triangle stock or even the ace stock. It's a different look, a different style of stock that accomplishes the same thing. It bolts to that standard 1032 double screw pattern.
Right.
But
that's another thing they're going to have to be cognizant of as they're changing parts. Is the stock is one of those parts on the list. So
yes, and I think pretty much everything we've mentioned here is I guess the Romanian wire folder and the Burrell side folder. Those are Polish and Romanian made, so they do not count as a part, American made part. Everything else, I think that I've mentioned and Brian has mentioned.
Now, did we mention the top folders that come over, that fold over the top?
You mean the underfolder?
Well, yeah, under folder, top folder. There's some that come over the top also.
Down or not?
Huh?
Yeah. It depends if you're upside down or not.
Yeah.
No.
You can fold that underneath there?
No, it goes under, yes.
It does.
That right there is going to cock block it.
Flat, and then it folds under, yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay, so underfolders. I'll edit all that out. So I don't think we talked underfolders.
Right.
If you like cool looks and you hate ergonomics, or you don't care about ergonomics, underfolders are for you.
They do not feel good to shoot.
Yeah, if you hate your face,
Yeah.
folders are also for you. Totally.
They are not fun to shoot. I have an underfolder here. I have it has a little adapter that fits in between the two arms that gives you somewhere to put your cheek. But even beyond that, my collarbone is destroyed every time I put anything more than 50 rounds through that gun.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Good point.
I used to have an underfolder some years ago, and we'd be talking about what are we going to take the range. Everybody like, oh, let's take the underfolder. It's so cool. And I'd be like, sure, man, you shoot your own ammo through it as much as you want. And they get about a mag through it, and they're like, that's no fun.
You know, one of the nice things about an underfolder, though, is it has a flat plate in the back that you can tap two 1032 holes in and put one of Sven stocks on it.
And put a good stock on it.
You can pop that hinge piece out of there. And yeah, you'll have two little holes on the sides, but you can throw one of his stocks on and you'll actually enjoy shooting it. So,
or you can just leave the underfolder folded and then have stock inception on the gun. So you have multiple options, right?
Okay, we've killed the underfolder. So let's move on to handguards now. And again, we've got just a wide variety of different kind of fore ends and handguards for the AK-47.
Which is great because a little over a decade ago, it wasn't the case.
No, this is awesome. No, that's the great thing with the AK-47 is that there's more and more accessories that are coming out, and the innovation, like companies like Occam Defense and like Manticore Arms, are developing these and being innovative so that it appeals more to the American market. But at the same time, you guys are coming up with useful items as well. It's not just having to, a cool thing to have a cool thing. Yep.
I think what's neat is you definitely can see in the last 10 years, 10 years ago, there really wasn't AK accessories, or there was, I know for a fact, because we were the first company to start making aftermarket 24 millimeter muzzle devices. And I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but there literally were, like 2 or 3 big companies making a few chintzy looking parts and a couple of little guys making one-offs. But I know like our Alpha handguard, we'll just start there. We make an aluminum handguard that's a drop-in replacement, has key mod on it. That's the other thing I'll say, and I don't know why this is. The AK market, and I don't know if it's because it's more traditional people who get into the AK, like they like the look of the original gun, and then they say, okay, I like it enough, I'm going to start upgrading it. But we found that the AK market is somewhat more conservative than the AR market, and it's typically like 5 years behind.
Yeah, you get more traditionalist, I think, with the AK market still. People that like to keep them traditional and in true form.
Yeah, and and that's
they feel like they're cheating if they they start making them look like an AR. Yeah.
Well, what we've seen is like M-Lock's hot in the AR market now. We've tried M-Lock handguards for the AK, and in our experience, they did not sell well. But we still sell a ton of our key mod handguards for the AK, and it's almost like, well, Yet rifle is fine. I don't want to, I don't want Kalashnikov coming into my bedroom at night to take me out. M-Lock's hot, but key mod's okay now because it's been out for a while, now it's traditional or whatever. We've seen that, I know, in my experience, a very tough thing for designing parts for the guns is bridging that line between traditional and innovative parts. You want to, our handguard looks like a traditional AK handguard, but has the key mod on it. So,
and speaking of handguards, the Merc.
Yeah, that's our latest product, other than the rifle that we're releasing now, the 1775. The Merc is a free float handguard for the AK. Solves a bunch of problems. The real target for that product was let's bring the heat down. AKs get hot is the standard thought, and they do. But we've managed to. Our test was can we fire 1 round a second for 5 magazines, so 150 rounds, and still be able to hold on to the thing? And we accomplished that, and we can hold on to it for longer than that. We can get the barrel up so hot that the paint's just, flashing off and there's smoke pouring off the gun, and you don't need gloves anymore. So that's been pretty cool. But we also are able to strap whatever kinds of toys you want. We got 7 rows of M-Lock on there, and Sven's right. The resistance to new ideas is real. And plus we're not for everybody. For sure. Like you do need to do surgery on the gun to get our stuff to work. We've tried to minimize that. Like you can take a Dremel and cut the rear sight block and front sight block off. But I know a lot of people who say that a Dremel should be a class 3 device. There's a lot.
So, in my hands for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, because they will make it one. Shh.
Yeah, I was going to say it's definitely most uses of a Dremel are assault with a deadly weapon.
yeah, totally.
But you bring up a good point when we're talking accessories, is that the AK is all the different manufacturers. It's fickle, and not all these parts are going to be like a perfect fit on your AK, and some of them won't fit at all. And you gotta, like Brian said, you gotta, either you gotta have the skills and the tools, or you gotta take it to a gunsmith. But that's what we're seeing as we're getting more of these accessories. We are seeing that we're getting better fits on a lot of this stuff too. So we're getting more standardization, I guess is the word, in the AK market, especially with the American made stuff.
Yeah. Well, I wish I could say that. I wish I could agree with you 100%. The Century AKs do not fit a European specification. They made their own.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying all.
Okay. Well,
I'm not saying all. I'm saying we're starting to see more of it.
Brian, let me guess. You were sitting there with a pair of calipers one night and went, son of a, because that's what happened to us.
oh yeah. Yeah. And they're not the only ones. Like Arsenal USA will occasionally use on some of their guns, the SLR 107s, they'll use a milled barrel on a stamped receiver, and the dimensions of the rear sight block journal, the place on the barrel, the precision location on a barrel is called a journal. And the journal where the rear sight block presses on is 18.5 millimeters on a milled gun and 17.5 on a stamped gun. And I had that same son of experience one day with a stamped Arsenal, and lo and behold, the trunnions are also a different width. The notch where the rear sight block goes is 22, I think, on a stamped gun, and 24 on a milled. It's something like that. And these guys have they've got obviously a stamped notch because it's a stamped gun, but then a milled barrel diameter. So they took one from one and one from the other and made a baby with it. And that stuff will make people crazy. So I certainly yearn for an American mil spec that we can all start building to, which should just be, in my mind, the Russian spec. Like, there is one spec,
right?
And it didn't need improving, in my humble opinion. So it'd be nice if we could all get back to that for sure. But yes, there's a lot of Manticore in particular. I see that they're offering compatible parts for a few different variants here, which is impressive. And that's
what you'll find when you go shop for a lot of these parts, is that it helps when they designate, platforms that it's compatible with and not compatible with. They don't all do that, but a lot of them will do that. They'll let you know, or it'll be a specific part for a certain type of manufactured AK.
One thing I should add in there with handguards, always take a look to see if a company offers a stamped and a milled version. So if you have a stamped receiver and a milled receiver, there's a little lug on the back of a handguard. If it's not one that bolts around the barrel to support it, but it plugs in like a normal one. And the milled handguard and the stamped handguard, that lug is a slightly different shape on both of them. It's not to say you couldn't make it work, file or a Dremel if you want to commit a crime, but and I mean a crime to the part, not legal crime, but you will find that you will find on AKs, especially the fore ends. We've noticed over the years. That sometimes the front of the fore end, you may need to just do a slight pass or two with a file because the front handguard retainer just won't quite get into place, or things like that. There's a little variation. And I don't know if it's part of it may just be that the machining tolerances are a little looser on that stuff. For, some of the stuff is not considered as critical. It could just be, grandma, whoever in Kyrgyzstan was drinking on a Friday afternoon and putting the AK together. We joke about that, but I think it's just certain things, we think of machining tolerances and how tight things are, and it's just not the same on an AK, the way things mount up. It's not designed in quite the same theory of how you would design things to make nice, tight, perfect fits. So and there's nothing wrong with that. It's the way it is. So
right. And there are lots of, like I said, there are lots of options out there for you guys. Midwest Industries makes a lot of different compatible handguards, railed, unrailed. What would you guys say as far as wood? Where would you recommend people go get their wood furniture for their AKs?
If you're going for original wood, I would say the best price for like foreign made or even some American made stuff, Apex Gun Parts. Actually, they sell a lot of surplus AK parts. Actually, if you're looking for wood stock or anything like that, or old pistol grips, assuming you keep your 922R count correct. If you want to go with original furniture, sometimes they'll have blemished sets or kind of heavily used sets, and you can get a really nice classic battlefield look. For new production furniture, especially the polymer stuff, I think K-VAR is probably the game in town.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's K-VAR for you guys looking them up.
Correct. And that stuff's actually, most of it, they do have some US made versions of the stuff, but some of it's Bulgarian or Russian made or wherever it's from. And the quality is very good on that. I mean, it's on all the Arsenal guns, and I have it and I recommend it. For new made, go ahead.
All right. Sorry about that. Andrew at armsofamerica.com.
Oh,
also, tell you, Andrew's great, and the customer service there is amazing. He's also got a lot of good surplus stuff. And I might be getting him in trouble here with how many calls he's going to get, but he's very responsive over email, and so people that are looking for something special might get some help from him. But his web store is quite good too. Like, just root around in there, you'll find a lot of good stuff.
And drop that website again. What's it called?
Armsofamerica.com. And then
okay, Drew, you're gonna get inundated. So
you were saying Midwest. The folks at Midwest are real good people too. They're good Americans. They're shooters. They make all their stuff in the U.S. Good people, good designs. Can't go wrong there either.
Yeah. And then, of course, Magpul has a matching set of handguards as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
To go
and
with that
honestly, it's not a manufacturer, but if you're looking for stuff, some of the really nice kind of shellacked finish, sometimes on Gunbroker, if you look around, you actually can find either original furniture or there's people there who refinish the furniture. Gunbroker is kind of like the Etsy of gun parts sometimes. And, if you shop carefully, be cautious because, especially if you're new to the game, to make sure you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
But I've seen some really nice stuff there before that turns up. So.
Do you guys recommend Amazon for any gun part?
No.
Thank you. Okay.
Brian, you want to back me up there?
Well, there are some things that I will get there. Little stuff I'm happy to get. Like some things I'm cheap about. And so personally, like little mounts and stuff, sometimes I'll get there. But yeah, no,
guilty pleasure.
I think that Sven is being far more principled than I am, and I should be agreeing with him 100%.
Well, there's some reputable people on Amazon, but there's a lot of crap on there too. So you got to buyer beware on that.
There's two things to keep in mind about Amazon. Number one, they don't like gun parts, so almost everything ends up getting listed as airsoft. And then the second problem is airsoft parts. Airsoft parts are not gun parts. They might work, but they also might break, and you don't want to get an airsoft handguard thinking it's a real handguard, put it on, and then discover that nylon 6 or urethane melts at 150 degrees, and now you've got a puddle of plastic in your hand. You've got
a urethane glove,
a chunk of M-lock rail or something. Things that I'm gonna weld or like where I'm gonna remachine something for a concept. I'll get it on Amazon, but I totally agree. Don't put life-saving stuff on your life-saving equipment. Like airsoft on life-saving equipment is a bad idea. It'd be like buying a piece of string, for a seatbelt. You just don't do it. It may look like it would work, but it won't. And you don't want to find out the hard way.
Let's do this because I want to get into the brakes also, but I want to take our questions that we've got from our listeners. And I'm going to Facebook first, and I think we've probably answered a lot of these. Tyler Spence, any other accessories furniture companies that you guys know of that are making good products but may not be that well known? You've mentioned a couple of those already. I like the Merc handguard by Occam, and I know Manticore Arms makes some cool stuff. Anyone else that you guys know making good AK products? You want to drop those names again that you were American, and what was the other one? Yeah, well,
Tango Down makes a great grip that used to be, I'm just going to call the Tango Down Battle Grip, AK Battle Grip. Okay. They're expensive. They're really good. Jake Masterson at Modern Defensive Enhancement, you can find him on Facebook, does stippling on those for stupid cheap. And the Tango Down grip, when it's been stippled, I think is world class. What else do we use on our, the ALG trigger group is fairly light, especially if you're not.
Love it.
Yeah, pretty nice. I don't think it's for everybody. It's just right for me. It's what I put on our production guns. The 2-stage Arsenal US-made triggers, if you want a heavy pull, I think are amazing. The single-stage US Arsenal ones are fine. Lots of people like the Tapco triggers. I'm not one of them, but lots of people that I trust make quality guns and use those Tapcos.
Mm-hmm. Rifle Dynamics has great parts. You guys can go there, get some awesome things from Jim.
Heck yeah.
What about Krebs? I'm not real familiar with Krebs, but I know they've got a good reputation in the business.
Am I allowed to say Krebs makes nice stuff if I also admit that I drink with him occasionally?
Sure.
It's like once a year, but we host an event and he's there. And Mark is actually local to us. I saw him ran into him at SHOT Show and whatnot. Mark, Krebs is probably not as well known as they should be. They kind of pioneered the industry in some ways of AK upgrades. And they've still got a great name to those, if you're looking for a good built gun. I want to say they were the Rifle Dynamics before there was Rifle Dynamics, and that's no offense to Jim Fuller. I've met him. I've been to the garage party before, and he's really good at what he does. But Mark was, I'd say he's created some innovation before there was even the thought to innovate the AK.
Sure.
Like
I said, he's kind of one of those names that always comes up when you're talking about the AKs. Mesa Kinetic Research, I know that they've got some good stuff, and I think they're coming out with their own line of AKs now too. I saw some posts the other day, so that's something we're going to check into a little bit more. But we've had Vince on the show. Vince is a great guy, knows his AKs, knows the history, real smart dude. Who else? I mean, we've named quite a bit right there. So let's move on to the next question. What are good aftermarket triggers for AKs? We mentioned ALG, mentioned the Tapco. Is there any other good aftermarket triggers you guys recommend? I'd
say your best baseline trigger is a Tapco. I mean, honestly, a great amount of the production guns out there use the Tapco because it's very reasonably priced and it's a very good product. I've not used the ALG, but I've heard good things, and I think the next step up from like a Tapco, which is a base level, pretty decent trigger, it would be ALG. And I don't know, does Geisley make one? Brian, maybe you know the answer to that.
That's ALG.
Oh, okay, that's right. I always forget. ALG is just the.
It's his wife's company. It's his wife's company.
His wife's company. It's Geisley with purple, right? I mean, that's pretty much what it is.
There you go. Yeah.
It's a good way to describe it. Okay. Any experience with the adjustable gas chamber for suppressing AKs?
Yeah, I've recently started playing with the KNS piston. It's funny, people who I trust seem to go either way on them. There are people who think they're amazing and other people who don't. But the people who think they're amazing are really bright. So it appears to be a stylistic difference. My experience is not deep enough yet to have a good opinion. However, I do know that if you already have a tuned gun, the stock piston is not the right one for you. You need to call them up and make sure you get the right piston. But if you're massively overgassed, the stock one will be fine. But there's a cup in the front end of them that's quite interesting. That if you're overgassed will help a lot at taming it. The tunable blocks are great. Rifle Dynamics has one on a house brand. I've heard good things about the Definitive Arms Copper Custom one. I haven't tried one yet, but that's based on an older design, kind of the Dragunov school of things. Yeah, they're righteous.
Cool.
I'm just going to go with what Brian said.
Okay.
Oh, and I should say that we haven't talked about cans, but that's sort of a question.
That's going to be another episode.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
great.
We're going to talk all cans one episode, so that's coming up.
Great.
And we'll have you on that if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Or get Mike Pappas on. He knows a lot more about it than I do. I just wanted to say the Wolverine does everything it says it does.
Okay.
You don't need to tune your gas on a Wolverine is why I'm going there.
I will once again say what Brian said, because the Wolverine, I've not personally shot one. I've never heard a bad thing about that can, other than it's expensive. I mean, I guess all cans are expensive, but it's on the higher end of the price range.
Well, what makes them expensive is the stupid the
mounting
NFA
system.
No, the NFA.
Well,
having to pay that
too.
stupid tax stamp.
Artificial price. I mean, it's like class 3 guns. It's the market, but we could argue that one in a whole nother episode. But
right.
The Wolverine has a lot that goes into the construction. I've seen the guts of it and stuff like that. And there's a reason that it's worth the squeeze. So
all right, let's hit this one. What threading is on the barrel of an AK? Is it the same as most 308 barrels, 1/2 by 5/8? How hard would it be to thread for silencer? What's a good rail to put a scope, like a 1-4, 1-6? He specifically mentions the ride-on. My favorite accessory, the one I can't afford, the scary silencer. We just kind of hit that a little bit. So
I can
threaded. Let's talk about the threaded.
Well, from most common to least common would be 14x1 metric left hand. That's what's on most AK-47s. Then there is 24 millimeter, which is on most AK-74s and some 5.56 caliber AKs. The Yugoslavians, deciding they had to go their own way on everything, did 26.5 millimeter. Try finding that in the thread book when you're trying to do stuff for the specs. I can't even remember if that's left or right at the moment. I want to say it's right-handed. And for people wondering, left versus right, right-handed is typical thread where righty-tighty, lefty-loosey when you're threading it on. Is
that facing the barrel or behind the barrel?
That's if you were pointing the muzzle at your face. Okay. You're twisting it clockwise. The 14x1 millimeter thread, actually you turn counterclockwise, which is why occasionally people go, oh my God, the muzzle device is stuck, or oh my God, this new muzzle device is broken, because your inclination is to turn clockwise and it doesn't go that way for various reasons that only the Russians want to disclose. But
that granny sitting in her hut, yeah.
That's right. Beyond that, I think the only things you'd ever see really these days, might see from some older guns, is there are some with bare muzzles, like no muzzle thread, which are Ban era guns, and then some of those Ban era guns were threaded, a very, very few of them 1/2x28. I've actually seen a couple of 1/2x28 threaded slant brakes, but that pretty much covers it.
Okay.
As for the 5/8, it's really unfortunate, but on most AKs, the gas tube journal is 15 millimeters, which is, I think, like 0.589 or 0.598, and 5/8 is 0.625. So 5/8 crown is actually bigger than the gas tube, so it doesn't work. It is the short answer there. So luckily, for silencers, we've got a few different companies like JMac and Dead Air that are doing 14-1 left QD mounts, and that's what goes on our stock rifles.
Okay. Next question is, they want to talk about scope mounts. Scope mounts. Don't forget the scope mounts. So, scope mounts. Let's talk scope mounts real quick.
RS Regulate. That's the other company we probably should have mentioned earlier.
Oh, yeah. They do a lot of stuff. Yeah.
So, is it Scott over there? He kind of reinvented the market for scope mounts. Everybody thought the Russian system sucked because it wasn't Picatinny and all that. And I can't even keep track of how many different mounts he has now, but he's got something for everyone, and direct mounts, Picatinny rails. I don't know. What is there beyond that? I guess there's like the Texas Weapon Systems top covers.
Got Midwest Industry has some.
Occam now.
Occam Defense has the rear sight tower.
Yes, that too. So.
And then there's SaberWorks with their KOP, which is a very nicely made product.
That's the guys I always forget about.
Yeah,
Ultimac.
The Ultimac. That's a classic one there, and it
Jim's
still
favorite.
stands up. We've got our super low Picatinny top cover that goes on our Alpha Rail, so you can get a co-witness on there. Which I guess quickly to mention, the issue with the AK is the sights were put really low over the top cover, which is great in 1947 when you're trying to keep a low, short distance between the top of the sights and the bore, because then you don't have many issues with offset and whatnot. Not so great when you're trying to wedge optics onto a gun that was designed, 60 years ago. And that's why you see so many options, and a lot of them are basically, in some ways, workarounds. You've either got your choice of, there's really three things. There are a few systems that do allow you to see through an optic and still see the irons. Our super low Picatinny with some optics will work that way. Midwest Industries, I think they have their direct mount top covers, which, like with Aimpoint Micro and some of the other stuff, I forget all the teeny tiny little optics. There's RS Regulate. I think a lot of their optics mounts are designed that you actually can see the iron sights just underneath, and you can just barely peek it there, but they're there. And then there's, like the SaberWorks. I think they actually have like a little iron peep built into the back of that.
They've got a few different options, but yeah, that's one of
which
several. You can a witness,
right? Yeah. And the question there is, how adjustable is it? Well, if your optic broke, and you're down to irons, you're probably having a pretty shit day. So you might having any sights is better than no sights. And then beyond that, you've got stuff that kind of blocks the sights, but no big deal. The Texas weapon mounts, basically stuff where they've put Picatinny on top of the gun and your sights are going to be blocked. But, with modern Picatinny, quick detach optics, I don't really think it's, for most of us, the 99th percentile, I don't think you're going to be in that big of a rush to take the optic off and jump to the irons to kill whoever is, doing whatever.
Another question on that would be, I've seen it a couple of times, and Brian, you and I talked about this. I don't know if we talked about it just between you and I, or we talked about it on the show, but the best place to mount your optic or your scope, because you have the side mounts, you've got like the rear sight mounts, you've got the handguards nowadays that it's got all the real estate. You've got top covers that have rails on them sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason I've sunk a pile of money and a bunch of years of my life into the way that I do it. It's because I didn't like what everybody else was doing. That said, I'm not for everybody, and there are perfectly reasonable solutions out there. But what I was going for with the things which I hold dear are combat readiness and martial effectiveness in a gun like this. If I want a deer rifle, I'm going to get a deer rifle. This gun is for one particular use. And when I was first getting into defensive weapons, I wanted the thing that Somalis and flip-flops were being combat effective with against our guys. Mostly because I don't have a lot of training. I don't have time to train a lot. I'm not going to be in combat a lot to get good at combat. I need the thing that is just going to work. And so I wanted a simple solution that was rugged. I also did a lot of training down at Tactical Response in Tennessee, where it would rain for a solid week and we'd be rolling around in the mud and it would be raining the whole time and you would break a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And became very obvious that co-witnessing, while it's nice for having the same sort of memory footprint about where you stick your eye, the most common experience that I've had with optics failing is that you get mud on them or they fog. And if you're co-witnessed and you have mud or fog over your optic, you need to be able to get the optic off. I don't care about anything. You just have to, unless it's in a different location. So to me, rule one is that you've got to have a QD mount or like 45-degree offsets or something like that if you want to be able to keep using your weapon. And then it needs to be rugged. You got to be able to throw it around and have it not lose zero. And so, yeah, not too many parts, rugged, redundancy, those sorts of goals led me to the way that I designed my stuff. There are other ways to skin the cat, and for people that want those, I definitely, I've talked about a bunch of companies that are good people that make quality products, and happy for people to find the solution that works best for them.
Good PC answer there.
Well, I mean,
Sven, you don't have to be PC if you don't want to be.
Like Troy at Midwest, Fred Stetcher at KOP, and now Sven here. There's enough for all of us to eat, and I think specifically what they're asking is, would it be better for me to mount my optic? Let's say they're using a scope. Let's do a scope, not a red dot, but a scope. So they're mounting a scope. Would it be better for them to do like an Ultimac mount, or would it be better for them to do a Midwest Industries side mount? Well, that's what I'm saying. My products meet that solution, and if I thought there was a better solution out there, I would have done it. So my personal answer for how to mount a scope is that you get a Merc, and if you want a red dot, I believe that the best solution is the RST. That said, I'm not God, and
you can put a red dot on a Merc too, right?
Oh yeah, heck yeah!
Just get the Merc.
You can put just about anything you want on the Merc and have it work. I've got video of us shoot with a 20 power, with iron sights, with a red dot. You can throw anything you want and it'll work on there. That said, I think it's best because I think X, Y, and Z are the most important things.
Sure.
If you don't think that X, Y, and Z are the most important things, it's not the best mount for you.
Good answer.
And so I just want to be explicit about that. That it's not just that I'm being PC.
No, I'm just busting your chops, dude.
I don't know. It's important to me.
That's a good answer, Sven.
Okay, cool.
Sorry. You're gonna have to catch me up. Sorry, my wife sent me a very important text.
Oh, do you need to go?
In a few minutes here, but go ahead. I've got a few more minutes.
You're missing dinner, aren't you? That's the important thing.
No, apparently our neighborhood is completely surrounded with police cars without their lights on. So
oh, damn.
She was a little worried.
Tell her to break out the AK.
Yeah, I just told her, make sure the doors are locked and you were in the best armed house in the neighborhood.
So we were just talking about, the question was, as far as mounting your scopes or your red dot, what's the best position on the rifle to do that? It's just to kind of sum it up, in your opinion. And do you guys have mounts, optic mounts?
Yeah, like I said, we've got our super low Picatinny top cover to mount the optic forward and be able to see through the optic to see the iron sights. But at the same token, I can't disagree with what Brian said about being able to see your iron sights separately from your optics is a good point. If your optic gets busted in a certain way,
you need your
you may not be able to remove it, right. Or whatever. It may be too far gone to see the sights, or like he said, it gets covered in mud, and then you're kind of in trouble. I am kind of a traditionalist who uses iron sights mostly, so. I've never been, to me, the AK is just not, it's not in a place where optics give me enough of an advantage where it overcomes a lot of the inherent design problems of putting optics on an AK. Mm-hmm. And that's not against Brian and his product. I actually think, as I mentioned earlier, he deleted the rear sight base, and that solves a lot of problems. That's the major problem with the AK is the way it's set up there.
Yeah, we trade parts, Sven. You send me a buffer here, and I'll send you a Merc.
Okay. I think we've answered this question, so let's move on. And then that's going to bring us to our final thing here, and then we'll wrap it up. The brakes, the muzzle brakes. Flash hiders for AK-47s.
Take
it away, Sven. Yeah,
actually, you guys probably glanced at our webpage and went, "Oh crap, he knows what he's doing here." Actually, AK muzzle devices are where we kind of cut our teeth on our first metal products. I offer a ton of them, so I'm a little biased here and there.
But you offer a unique perspective, so that's why we have you.
I will go with that. I will take that compliment and run with it. How's that? So the AK, you can go anywhere from a lot of AKs. You get your standard traditional AK, and it's got a slant brake on it. The slant brake is nothing more than a lopped off piece of metal that was ideally designed to control a little bit of the muzzle rise that typically happens to the up and right when you're right shouldering it. On fully automatic. It does something. It works as a really good thread protector. And I think it works a little bit. But the AK was kind of underserved in muzzle devices. And now these days, we kind of, I don't want to say I started the trend, but definitely for the 24 millimeter and 26 millimeters, we were the first ones doing it. You can get good flash hiders now. You can get good muzzle brakes. And there are million designs out there now. Obviously I'm a little biased towards our own product because I designed it because I wanted something certain out of it.
Talk about the different varieties that you offer and what they were designed for.
Broadly speaking, you can break muzzle devices into two types. There are flash hiders and there are muzzle brakes or muzzle compensators. You could use either term interchangeably. That is not to say you can't accomplish some of both, but everything is basically you're trying to work from two ends of the spectrum. One is with flash hider, essentially what you're trying to do is a flash is nothing more than the ignition. It's burning, right? It's powder and turning into light, and you also hear the sound when it goes out. It's just waste energy coming out of the gun. And ignition happens for a flame in a certain envelope of oxygen and fuel, and you've already got the spark to do that. So basically all a flash hider is doing is trying to move that envelope into a spot where the mix of oxygen in the atmosphere and the powder and everything, you're just trying to move it outside of that range where it wants to turn into light, essentially. And this is maybe an oversimplification, but that's essentially what you're trying to do is make it so that the waste energy cannot turn itself into light. That turns into a bright flash that, if you've got a shorty AK and you fired it in the day, you're like, oh, wow, that was a really cool orange basketball-sized fireball. So all these
which are all the pictures designs, you see on the internet. That's what people like to post.
Right. So all these flash hiders, essentially what you're doing is you're trying to control the intermix and disturbance of the air to prevent that flash from happening. The most effective ones are basically what you call prong style, which we have our Eclipse flash hider. There's other companies like Smith makes their Vortex. I mean, there's a million designs. They all are slightly different based on internal testing or aesthetics, but they all essentially accomplish that. What you're trying to do when you're preventing flash is you're trying to, in our experience, prevent any hard surface that powder is going to bounce, or that high pressure energy is going to bounce off of, because that, for whatever reason, and we could probably get into a lot of physics that are even beyond what I understand.
That's why I got Brian here.
A surface that has a tendency to promote flash and boom, you're redirecting energy, and it turns into.
So you're saying the best to reduce the flame are the prong shape?
Yes, I guess my long-winded answer is prong flash hiders typically get the most effective use. The only trade-off is you may get a ping out of them because essentially what you've built is a tuning fork.
So now, do you like 3 prongs, 4 prongs, 5 prongs?
We do 3 prongs because we found they're the most effective. We've experimented a lot with slot size, the number, length, the spacing, there's what we call the twist, where it's not cut on a straight. The slots are not cut straight; they're actually angled a few degrees. And we experimented a lot, and we found what we thought was in length too. Yeah, all those factors kind of add into what makes an effective flash hider. Yeah. The reason you'll see some an AR-15 flash hiders, the traditional one, it's got the slots in it and not prongs, is the prongs can get hung up on stuff. They do make a ping, which, compared to the sound of a gunshot, nobody's going to hear, but it is a weird thing to experience. But basically you want to reduce that surface in front that things can hit.
So what's a good one for, so you said, so when you coming out the end of the barrel, you got noise and you got
flash. Yeah, flash. Essentially light.
So light, the noise is the next thing that you're trying to reduce or retard. So what do you have for that? And what do you recommend for that?
Suppressors.
Well, obviously suppressors, but we're talking about just the compensators right now.
When it comes to flash and sound,
you can redirect the noise. Either it goes out to the sides or it goes forward.
Right. Essentially, you want the sound to go forward. Now, there are some of the what they call linear compensators, what people call the Bulgarian soup can or beer can. These kind of big ones, they have cones and all sorts of stuff going on in it. Those can somewhat direct sound and flash forward. It's still there, but it's almost like a speaker where it's controlling the direction it's heading. Is the best way I can describe it. So there are those. We don't make anything like that in particular for the AKs, but they do exist.
Right.
And
what would be a good compromise between the two? A good flash hider that gives you least flash and least sound.
There's another parameter that Sven probably is going to want to go over here, and that's compensating for the recoil.
Yes.
Well, yeah. The real trade-off, as I understand it, between comps and flash hiders is those two things that you don't get to have. You get to trade them off. Want to talk about that, Sven?
Yeah, I got a little. As I said, there's two directions you can go when designing a muzzle device, and the one is you can either hide the flash and
or reduce
not
the rise.
make the sound as noticeable to the shooter. Basically you're trying to prevent any obstructions in front that may reflect off of and come back. The other end of the spectrum is a muzzle brake or compensator. And basically what you're doing is you're creating a flat surface that high pressure gas is hitting. And it's actually through Newton's third law, as that hits it, if you almost imagine somebody hitting a flat surface with a hammer, it's pulling it forward, or it's pushing it away from you. You're using that high pressure gas to hit those surfaces and actually pull the gun forward to kind of counteract it. That's the easiest way to explain it. Now you can get into little holes, to vent the gas in different directions. We make a compensator called the night brake, where we've got a series of holes on the top and somewhat to the sides, and it's restricted at the front with an interior surface. Kind
of like thrusters.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. You're basically making jet thrusters.
You're directing the thrust to push your
and by carefully balancing the number of holes and the positions in these surfaces, you basically can prevent the muzzle from rising. You can reduce the felt recoil because it's essentially pulling the gun forward just a little bit against the recoil backwards. But the offside to that is anytime high pressure air is ramming into these surfaces, it reflects off it, and it typically comes back at the shooter. So that's why when you have a break, like some of these crazy tank style breaks and things, you're actually hearing that sound being reflected. The sound's there no matter what. It's just coming back at you, and it's much more noticeable. Or the poor bastard next to you in the next bay over, who's now getting a whole earful of that.
Yeah. The AK typically, it doesn't have a lot of recoil muzzle rise to begin with, right?
Not
the round itself.
No, certainly not on semi-auto. I think the 7.62 caliber guns have the most. A 223, or 5.56, whatever you want to call it, or the 5.45 Russian caliber.
Yeah.
They're very manageable.
So you guys make a full line of devices, muzzle devices that people can check out. Brian, what in your experience, as far as the flash or the muzzle rise, what have you found to be effective?
I weigh about 260 pounds and I'm 64. And so for me, but before I really started talking with other people, I thought that brakes were for 90-pound females. And
or 5'6" tall dudes who design handguards too. But I'm just saying.
That's where I'm going, is that like the AK does not push me around at all, period, the end. And so I don't need a brake. And so I use a flash hider, and the brakes, but my wife is about 110 pounds and she really likes a brake, and smaller statured people that I know, it matters. So if you're smaller in stature, or you're maybe you've got a shoulder or collarbone sensitivity, maybe you're a little more thin skinned, quite literally there. Like maybe your clavicle is shaped a little differently where you're getting beat up more. Right. The brake is probably a much better fit for you. One thing you want to be conscious of is that if you're in classes or shooting with other people, the concussion off to the sides with certain brakes, and I haven't shot the Manticore ones, as I say, I don't really know brakes very well. The concussion off to the side can be literally damaging over a day of shooting with other people. You can kind of ring other people's bell if they're real close to you. So if you're in a class, you want to be real mindful as to what that brake is doing. If it's taking out all of the piss out of the recoil, chances are the concussion off to the sides is pretty pretty rude.
That energy has to go somewhere.
Exactly. And no, it's just physics. Our guns, we sell an option. They're all suppressor ready, but we sell a triple prong flash hider as a default and a, help me out, a JMac QD mount for the brake if you want that. Although, yeah, Sven, I got to introduce you to Mike Pappas to see if you guys could do a dead air compatible brake.
Done.
That'd be fun. Okay.
Done. There we go. I'm telling you, the best collabs happen on Talking Lead.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Find me on Facebook. We'll talk.
yeah, big time.
So, other than, grips are grips. I don't really think we need to get into grips. whether you like the rubber or you like the polymer, hard plastic kind of stuff.
They're incredibly personal to your hand. Whatever feels good in your hand, just go with it. There's really no other way to put it. So
I mean, I found that I like what I like on my AR, on my AK, the same kind of grips.
Mm-hmm.
Just comfortable that way. I like ergo. I'm preferential to ergo grips, but that's me. That's just me. So. All right. Anything else that you guys, accessory-wise, you think we need to throw out there? I think we pretty much covered the main items there. I mean, we can get into parts and stuff like that, but as far as accessories go,
honestly, other than maybe a good sling, that slings are a personal thing too. I always find, honestly, unless you really need a sling for a class or for specific use, I actually find they're more of a nuisance, getting in the way of the magazine and all the controls. But
they're required equipment for a class, and for sure
need a sling.
The holster of the gun world, and so they are how you are going to holster your rifle if you need to. The school of gun handling I follow is that the sling comes off if you perceive a threat. But sling coming back on is a big deal if you need to move around a house or something. My personal favorites are SOE Tactical. The Blue Force ones are perfectly adequate. The Magpul ones are good.
Haley's got some.
Haley's I need to try out. It looks really nice. His single point, it's like a harness thing.
Mm-hmm.
Looks really cool.
Yeah. And as far as attaching the slings on AKs, how would you go about? Because some of them don't have the sling attachments.
You can take the QD. If we're talking about a wood stock, you can take the QD mounts, like an M-lock QD mount, ditch the M-lock T-nuts, and screw that straight into the wood stock right where it
cool.
It's a real nice little trick, and it'll put it right where you need to for a single point attachment.
I was going to say, I've never heard of that, and that is genius. So
yeah, I'd like to say I came up with it, but you can do that also. You can weld it on. I think Jim Fuller might have showed me this. You can take that same device and weld it onto the base of a triangle stock. Manticore ought to offer a triangle, actually, with that, your billet triangle.
There you go.
Love to see you add that right in that corner.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Okay, so Shwell, are you still with us, buddy?
Absolutely. I'm learning. I'm getting my learn on. This is what this.
I am too, and I've just been sitting here listening the whole time. So I mean, this has been this has been great. I don't have any other accessories that I think we need, and I think we've got most of our questions answered from our listeners. Do you have anything else to add, Shwell?
No, sir. No, I think I'm sitting here breaking down every inch of the AK. I have one hanging up on my wall here, and I'm looking at it thinking they've covered everything minus the fire selector, the fire control. That's about the only thing we didn't cover, and that's personal preference.
It's personal preference, and then you can get into sights too. I mean, there's different kind of front post sights that you can do. There's rear, the rear. What's the flip up thing called? Help me out. The rear sight.
Oh, the rear notch. The rear leaf.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
The rear leaf. There's different options that you can go with that too. But I think we'll get into that when we talk more scopes and get into optics. We'll talk about that kind of stuff. So I think it's time. I think everybody's ready. Let's give away an AK, guys. What do you think?
Okay.
Let's do it.
No, let's not give away any more AKs. I want to keep them.
You want to keep the remaining 5? Let's split them up between you and me, man.
Yeah,
Swell is willing to test fire each and every one of them for as long as it takes.
So I think are we going with another Hell Pup this week, or is this a Sporter? I can't remember what CJ told us. Okay, a Hell Pup. All right, so this is for another Pioneer Arms Corp Hell Pup, AK-47, and we've got a lot of participation from you guys. I mean, I appreciate everything that you lead heads are doing. You're out there sharing the show. You're engaging with us on social media, and I really appreciate it. And you guys are awesome. Big Papa 94, John Adams 3, Tandem Dooley, Tyler S 118, Disruptive Tactics Inc., Austin Whalen. Got a new one on Twitter. I haven't been really following Twitter, so I got on Twitter. And a dude named Nacho. Love the name, Nacho, on Twitter. And how did you get that and it not already be taken? Jason Farmer. We've got Bill Rozeski, Bill Adams, Nuffy Wrangle. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. So, of those people that I mentioned there's 11 of you. And we're going to randomize the numbers 1 through 11. And I'm going to tell you who's what. So Big Papa's 1, John Adams is 2, Tandem Dooley is 3, Tyler S. 118 is 4, Disruptive Tactic Incs. You're 5, Austin Whalen 6, Nacho is 7, Jason Farmer is 8, Jacob Rozeski is 9, Bill Adams is 10, and Nuffy Wrangle is 11. So it's between you 11 this week. And congratulations to Jerry Black from last week. He was our winner. He won the Sporter. So let's do this. We're going to randomize, and Shwell's got some kind of program he's using. I don't know what he's using. And we're going to pick between 1 and 11. Shwell, you have the honors, sir.
Okay, the number that we came up with, or that we got from the randomizer, is the number 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Austin Whalen. You are the winner. And Austin, I've got to give you props because you have been killing it on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So thank you. And that's something that I've been watching, like I said here recently, is Twitter. I want to see more activity on Twitter. If you guys have an Instagram account and you've got a Twitter account, start sharing our stuff on Twitter also. I mean, I know I don't do a lot on there, but you can see it just got Austin entered into this, and he won. So congratulations, Austin. Send us your info. I will get you in touch with Shwell, and Shwell will get you Shwell, what are you going to get him?
I'm sorry, I'm talking, but my mic is actually muted, so I'm
Tell
sorry.
Tell Pegs to leave you alone.
I was actually answering your question.
Oh.
I'm like, why does he keep talking over me?
He's like, shut up, Marty, you asshole.
Well, congrats, and Pioneer Arms looks forward to sending out that hell pup. It is a pistol, 7.62 by 39 caliber gun, and we look forward to getting that out to you.
Is this going to be the new with the dots, the holes in the back, or is it going to be the?
Yes, this is the new design for 2019.
There you go.
This one will be. This is what we will be sending out from now on, and I think a few people will be getting those from January and December as well.
A couple of the previous winners as well. Okay, yeah, because they're still waiting on theirs. And then you go to Manticore Arms and you can get that adapter and you can put your brace on that mofo, or you can SBR it if you want to. That's completely up to you. So
that is correct.
Sven, Brian, thank you guys so much for taking the time. Give everybody your social medias, your websites, any specials you've got going on, any discounts you want to offer our listeners are always appreciated and welcome. So Sven, we'll start with you.
Our website is manticorearms.com. We've got a full web store with all our products on there, not just AK stuff, but we also sell a lot of bullpup stuff, some AR-4Ns, a little bit of everything for everybody, I guess you'd say. We are on Facebook. You can find us just searching for Manticore Arms. We're on Instagram, so I've been told. I don't handle that part of the company. So
you are on Instagram.
And if you want to reach out to us, you can reach us at info@manticorearms.com. If you ever got questions about our products, anything like that, just let us know. We're very happy to help. And, we don't have a coupon set up yet, but why don't we set up one for Talking Lead? So we'll just do Talking Lead 10, Talking Lead 10, and that'll get you 10% off. I'll write myself a note now.
That'll be great because this won't go out till the 15th, so you got time.
Okay, so I'll write a note. By the 15th, I got to do that.
Very good. So you guys make sure you go and
10% off just for listening.
10%, and let Sven know how much you appreciate him being on and taking the time to join us. And Brian, Occam Defense.
We're at occamdefense.com. And I am on Instagram at Occam Defense Solutions. We are also on Facebook. I have our engineers monitor the Facebook channel. I occasionally hop on there too, but if you interact with the Instagram page, you are interacting with me. We have the still taking pre-orders on the 1775. Those will be shipping out. The orders that come in now are going to be coming in and shipping out in probably early July. Let's do a coupon code LED, LEAD, all uppercase, for $50 off.
Sweet.
The 1775. Those are sitting at $14.45 right now, so that'll give you the old price of $13.95.
Nice. Very good.
Wow.
Thank you
You
for
guys are
doing that.
great.
That is amazing. So you guys go show them love on all the social medias, their websites, and then hit them up on the email if you got like specific questions you want them to answer. They'll do it. And of course, we'll have you guys back on again, another episode. Thank you so much for taking the time. Shwell, buddy, I'm glad you made it for another episode.
I'm not missing any more episodes, folks. I'm here.
You heard it.
I am not missing any more episodes.
He may be muted, but he's here.
He's
Right.
here.
I'm not missing any more. I will be here, folks. If you come to this show just to hear my beautiful voice, you will not be disappointed here on out. How about that?
Well, we have our biggest downloads when you're on, so you gotta keep coming. If he doesn't show up, guys, I mean, you heard him say he's going to be here. He owes you an AK. Chirp.
Why you trying to see? There you go. You're trying to empty my safe.
We've got to put this on CJ somehow.
Everybody who's waiting for an AK, it's not because Pioneer hasn't sent them. It's because they made the mistake of putting them in my hands first. So I have a safe full of Pioneer Arms AKs right now on their way to an FFL near you.
And of course, Pioneer Arms website, you guys go to pioneer-pac.com. Check out the AKs, the Hell Pup, the Sporter. I mean, they've even got they still doing the, what are they called? I get the Ps, the PPS-43s and the PM-63s.
Yes, the PPS-43 for sure. The PM-63, I know they exist. I hear so much about them.
I've seen them.
But I have not been eyes on with those yet, as of yet. And once I see one here in Florida, you better believe that it is going in the safe with the rest of the AKs that I've collected.
Well, I got to shoot one when I was in Poland, and they are sweet shooters. The 9x18 millimeter submachine guns, they were beautiful to shoot. Absolutely love them. So you guys go show Pioneer Arms Corp some love as well. And real quick, I got to ask you this, Shwell. I made a post the other day. They've got a 1911 and a 9mm. Is that the first you've heard?
No, it's not the first I've heard.
Okay.
But again, it's another one of those sight unseen type of, is this a real, is this a rumor?
No, they got them. Are they coming to America? That's what we want to know.
That's my question. Are they actually going to make the trip over? And
coming to America.
I think sometimes CJ keeps things away from me so that I keep them away from so that it doesn't get out. And,
I got you. So something you guys also need to check out from Pioneer Arms Corp. Like I said, I posted it on social media, and then they've also been working on some AR. So lots of stuff that are rumored that maybe we'll get the inside skinny on. We'll work on that for you, AK heads, between now and the next episode, which will be part 9. 4 more AKs to give away, so stay tuned.
Everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of the AK Korner presented by Pioneer Arms Corp and the Talking Lead podcast.